Internet. Welcome back to that Silverline Show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Team TK, joined as always by Jose Fuentes.
Hello, everybody.
And we're joined by special guest for tonight, John Holland, a writer, publisher with a kind of a kitchen sink amount of accolades when it comes to things you've worked on or worked with. So the people who don't necessarily know who you are or familiar with your work, how do you introduce yourself?
I've been writing for quite a while in the industry. I started back in the 90s and worked with a bunch of different publishers like Fantagraphics and Kitchen Sink in fact, Caliber, Malibu, Innovation. I did the Christmas issue of the Quantum Leap. Innovation was adapting that at the time. Now I've worked with Antarctic Press, It's Alive, Insane Comics, and I self-publish under Diebold Comics.
You do. And yeah, that's kind of how I first became aware was Roland, obviously, with our history of being connected to Malibu. Was just kind of grabbing names of individuals associated or people that work with Antarctic, who we also work with a lot now. And you've done both, as well as your own publishing house in Diebold, which I thought was a cool kind of subject to hit on, subject to get into, because something we've always talked about is the difference between working with a publisher, the different scales of the different publishers available, because everyone thinks that getting into the comics, the end-all be-all is working with DC or Marvel, but they don't realize that there still is a plethora of options, as well as you can always just kind of go into business for yourself once you develop that sense of acumen. I mean, you can't go into business for yourself if you don't have the acumen, but then it just kind of turns into...
That's actually kind of me. I kind of went in business for myself without much business acumen.
Perfect. Yeah.
Jump in feet first.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, so we'll definitely get into that. I'll kind of give... I might send you a snapshot of this later, but Jose's familiar with this problem where right now in my my StreamYard, I can't actually see either of your faces. I just have...
Again?
Yeah, no, I just have like the static screening image that happens when you set your TV to like input 4. If anyone is an old head and remembers that. I guess it's not really much of an issue anymore, I guess. Yeah. And Brent Larson also joining us as well for our special episode tonight.
Sorry I'm late.
That's okay.
Is Brent all old school cable box colors?
He does, yeah. He's got a little bit of like that kaleidoscoping at the bottom of his screen that like it kind of looks like half of it is dead television. The bottom half is like if you took like a old film frame and like overexposed it.
I'm sorry?
No, it's Tim. Tim broke the internet on his computer or something.
Yeah, something, I guess. It's so far Reddit has been of little help with this, so hopefully I get a fix for it soon. But anyway, so I'm going to be terrible at reading facial language, so hopefully you guys can walk me through that unless it sorts itself out here. So yeah, we have a couple things we're going to get into, I guess, but before we get into all that, in terms of the writer, media, comics, movies, film, that's film, movies are the same thing, movies, TV. John, what are you currently ingesting as far as stories go? What's kind of hitting your inspirational spots?
Movies, I don't really go to the movies too much anymore, so I haven't really watched a lot of movies. TV, we just finished watching Lincoln Lawyer.
Nice.
The season 4 of that. Just wrapped that up tonight, in fact, before before this. I think I'm more inspired by books, just regular books and comics and stuff. I mean, TV, I've been watching, NCIS, Lincoln Lawyer. We're watching the old Leverage TV show. We've been rewatching.
Nice.
Yeah, and we're just at the end of we're coming up to the end of season 5. The Pit. The Pit's one of my favorite shows. That show
very
is
good.
yeah, it's just awesome. So a little bit of everything on TV, but I think I get more inspired by just reading comics or just reading books. Talk about the Lincoln Lawyer. I'm a big fan of Michael Connelly, the guy that created it. I read all of his box novels, Lincoln Lawyer, Ballard, and then he's even got a new series he just started. So I read a lot of detective thriller, a lot of nonfiction also.
Okay.
I'm one of those people, when I start writing something, even if it doesn't matter, I go really into depth with like background and like just the news story. I've got Akimi. I've got so many books on Japan and Japanese myths and Japanese monsters that I'll never read them all. And I probably like one book, I might find one little line in it that I'm like, oh, I can use that in the story. Whenever I start something, I go all out and just researching it. And, then it's kind of like, I've bought all these books and I probably use like one little bit out of maybe one or two of them. But I think it kind of gives you as you write it, even if you don't take anything straight from it, it gives you more of a feeling that you kind of know what you're talking about, at least.
Yeah, well, it helps.
Life.
It helps inform your references and inform kind of your subtext and world building that doesn't necessarily sit at the front of it, but it's in the iceberg. It's what gives the kind of the depth behind the panels that I feel like you can tell when it's there, when there is depth that isn't necessarily brought to the forefront like that.
Yeah, it makes it feel like you at least kind of know what you're talking about,
Yeah, and
if you get a little bit of subculture accurate, then it goes a long way.
It can even spur you on to a story element you hadn't thought of before.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brent, John, Brent.
Hey.
I'm real when I write. I'm not one of the writers that some writers like plot it all out, outline it, know exactly what they're doing. I know where I'm starting, and sometimes I know where I'm ending, and in between there, my story goes. I may be going one way and then realize, oh no, it's going a completely different way. I'm not real strict about where I go, so. It makes it easier. To me, it makes it more interesting to write it. I've had stuff like the story. I'm working on the second issue of Akimi right now, and it's already changed kind of as I went on.
I definitely understand that. So you say that you're more of a gardener than you are an architect.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, I just, when I try to outline, it never works. Sometimes I may use ideas from that outline, but when I start writing, it just, things happen. The character I thought may not be that important becomes more important, or instead of going right, I want to go left.
Entirely get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one thing, an advantage of, I guess, self-publishing, being my own publisher is, the shortest book I want to write is 24 pages, but I've written books before where I thought it was going to be 24 pages or even a single issue, like a standalone, and it ended up being like 2 issues or a 24-page story ended up being 32 pages. When I don't have an editor or a publisher telling me, oh, you can only write, every issue has to be a certain amount of pages, it makes it easier. You can write the story to fit the pages instead of, making the story fit, a certain amount of pages and having to just cut stuff out.
Absolutely. Well,
2 graphic novels later.
Yeah.
But let's kind of get into that because you talked about here. You do have Akimi, which is currently on Fund My Comic.
Yes, and we need a lot of help with it because for some reason it just has not taken off.
Well, that is hopefully we can get some of the Madness audience that is either watching live, watching later, or if you're watching the Madness Roku channel while the campaign is still alive, head on over. We should have. Let me actually grab this and then post it there. Oh, that's not going to post in some of the chats, but they'll go in most of them. Okay.
The man behind the curtain was almost faster than you, Tim.
Oh, that was actually me.
Was it?
Yeah, I too have the power sometimes. Yeah. So the link is in the different various chats. So let's talk a little bit about Akemi. I love kind of the art style here. How
Yes.
yeah.
I love the art, and it's Akemi had a kind of a weird birth, I guess. It was inspired by Warrior Nun from Antarctic Press.
Yeah.
Nun, because he had it, and it went to the TV show. He sold the rights to it. And I've worked with Ben on a few things, and Ben's the nicest guy in the world. And he was posting about kind of like he wanted to do something else, with kind of like this, in the similar fashion of Warrior Nun. He can't do Warrior Nun because he sold all the rights to it. So it kind of just got me thinking, because I kind of like that idea of a fighting nun.
Yeah.
And so, I've never read Warrior Nun. I never seen the TV show. When I first started to look at this idea, I wanted to read it, but then I thought, well, I'm probably better just creating it without, so I don't take any ideas from it. I have no idea how close this is to Warrior Nun. If it is, I'd be surprised, because like I said, it was a completely original idea. So, that was the inspiration for it. And then originally I had another artist that I was going to work with on it, that, he kind of, wanted to do it too. So we were going to do it, but unfortunately the other artist has never really, he talked about it, but never really, got around to doing anything. And this was,
right.
In fact, I talked to Ben about this last San Diego Con. So this is at least 6-7 months ago that, we started to do this. Well, last year was a terrible year for me as far as doing any work. I didn't write anything new or print anything new, publish anything new. It was just a rough year all around. There was, we had some issues. My sister had some issues, was in and out of the hospital, and I just never got anything done. I was waiting on some artists to do things, and by the end of the year, I was like, I'm not going to do that this year. I'm going to get some things done. So towards the end of the year, I started to look for new artists. I went on Facebook and posted, a bunch of the different groups that I was looking for an artist. And Jorge was one of the first artists that answered my, he sent me an email. And I was like, okay, and I kind of went, I said, well, I'm going to keep looking, because his style was so different than what I had originally envisioned with the artist that was originally talked to about it.
Right.
Their styles were completely different, but I kept going back to Jorge's art. It was just, I just liked it so much. There was just, to me, there's so much motion and fluidity in his characters, just the way he draws. So it didn't take me long before I was like, okay, I got him. I contacted him and said, yeah, let's do this. And so Jorge started drawing this. The script had been written, the first issue. Jorge started drawing this like at the beginning of the year, and he's already got the first issue done. So he's very, very fast, and he writes.
That's awesome.
I mean, not right. I write. He draws, colors it, and inks it. So he does everything besides the writing on this is by him. And we're already working on the second issue. The second issue is almost script, but he's got what the scripts that I've got done already, and he's starting to draw it. So, the plan is by the time we get this done, not long after we get this campaign done, we're hoping to have the second issue ready to go and do a campaign for it, so we can kind of keep the first maybe 3 or 4 issues kind of on a bi-monthly schedule to an extent. I don't know if we'll get it quite a monthly schedule, but bi-monthly would be a pretty good schedule for it. And if we can make, if I can at least make enough money where I can pay Jorge for this too. Right now, this is all going on my credit card. So
there you go. Yeah, bi-monthly for an independent. Anything more than once a year for a truly indie team is.
Yeah, I'm terrible, but I've got some books that have been, I've been wanting to do the next issue for like over a year ago. Just trying to get them out. So that's why, with Jorge being so fast, I was like, well, let's take advantage of this, and if we can get at least 4 issues out, that way we can do a trade with it, and and 4 issues will kind of give us an idea of how well it's going to do. If by the 4th issue and nobody's buying it, then we know, okay, maybe we need to move on.
Totally makes sense. And yeah, you said of Hori's art, like it is like the way it renders and the way that like the kind of raw shape work of it is a little different. It's very like non-traditional, but there is a kinetic energy to the illustration and the way it carries from panel to panel. I think just suits the medium so well. It's something that we talk about quite a bit on the show, especially when we have like illustrator episodes, is carrying that level of energy that allows the motion to happen behind the panels in the white spaces. When you're writing, how are you visualizing kind of your scripting? Are you doing just kind of page by page description, or do you full script, and how do you visualize the action in the panels?
No, I write full script, and pretty much, I break each page down panel by panel, and I write in each panel. I write basically what's going on in the panel. Now if he wants to change it around a little bit, or he has a different idea, I'm all for for him, putting his spin on it too. But it's pretty much, his pages are pretty much what I wrote in them. So yeah, I've always been writing full script. For some reason I can't write Marvel style too well.
I get that 100%. I understand that.
But see, like that page, the fighting page, I basically, kind of was like, I wrote that they were fighting and stuff, but he did that, especially that third row, the third row. That's all him, I mean, he just took what I wrote and just, went with it and went beyond what I wrote.
Absolutely. I love the breakout of it. It adds so much character to that scene. And the way it also carries through the personality of your main character there.
Yeah, I love his faces too. I mean, he draws to me just so much emotion on his faces. They jump out at me.
Yeah, 100%. I get that. Yeah, and we were talking about a little bit before show that you have some really great variant covers available as well. Jose had mentioned this Ted Wally one here. That when he sent me that cover, that cover is just so good. Not that the other covers aren't good, but that one just blew me away. Yeah, this is something that I would potentially put up in my framed wall here.
Yep.
Was that Jose?
I was just saying that's the cover. Like that, I saw the 3 covers. You know what I mean at the store. That'd be the one I lean towards.
100%. Yeah. This one too, also by Javier Lopera. I'm a big fan of the darkness. Like that's one of the things I'm reading right now, and the vibes on this one are just so good. Yeah. Javi and I worked together a few years ago. He did a story for me, Ayla, Speaker for the Dead, and he did a lot of covers for me. Back when I first kind of created Diebold Comics, he and I were working together a lot. He did a lot of covers for me, and I like his work, and he did a really good cover with that. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And then this one from Carlos is very this is very Warrior Nun. This is very kind of traditional, hits a lot of the indie space from the 90s. I feel like a lot of that energy's in there. Yeah, I like that. That's a simple cover, but it's, I like the way he's, the difference with the black and white. Mm-hmm. It does a really good job of staying clean and carrying through the silhouette. So you get just such a clean capturing of the characters involved, or the main character. That's so good. And then you got that A cover that is just so kinetic, and I love it. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, that is Kami, and that is on Puppet Comic. Again, links are in the chat. So let's talk a little bit about Diebold Comics, because that is your own print label, but you've had this long history of working with a ton of other publishers. What was the decision or jumping off point where you said that you wanted to pursue your own label? Well, it's weird. Back in the 90s, I found it easier to
to sell work to the indie publishers. There was a lot of, well, one, at that point there was like a million different indie publishers, especially like during the black and white boom.
Mm-hmm.
There was a million different companies out there, but there was more of the companies at that time published anthology titles. Like Fantagraphics, I did a story or a series. They had a comic called Critters, which was an anthology of funny animal characters, or anthropomorphic characters.
Yeah.
And I had a series in it that lasted, for I think it was like 10 stories or something. So it was easier for not to sell like a whole story, but to sell stories. And then, I kind of, like at the end of the 90s, beginning of 2000, I kind of took a break from trying to, doing a lot of writing. And when I came back about probably 5 years later, it felt like it was harder to find places to everybody was wanting, like superheroes or, complete stories or something. It seemed like it was harder to break into anything or to sell work. So I started to, I wanted to take some of that old stuff I did, like the series that I had in Critters was called Blizzards. I had enough stories from that to fill 5 issues of a comic book. So I started to reprint some of that old stuff under Diebold. First I wasn't printing it under any label. I was just printing it with no publishing name on it or anything. The only thing that connected it all was my name. But it took me a little while. I felt like I needed, to brand myself. I needed something to, an umbrella to put all this stuff under. And I came up with the name Diebold Comics. And in between that, a lot of that stuff I published was in black and white. And I wanted to do some of it back in color. And I found Have, and he was a colorist. So he started coloring some of the stuff for me. While we were working together, he kind of come up and he let me know. He goes, well, I'm an artist too. I can draw. So that led us to do Ayla, Speaker for the Dead. And we did a 4-issue arc for that. And that was like the first new thing I did in a while. So it was easier for me to just put out work if I just published it myself than trying to find some of these publishers. It seemed to me it was a lot harder for me to, sell stuff.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what has been that transition been like, sort of in terms of, you said, finding those new creative freedoms where if you want to put together a 36-page issue, you can, or not necessarily having sort of the same, well, this is a storyline we need to push, so we need you to write something that lead into this. How has been that transition creatively for you?
Creatively, it's been great. I think, the biggest issue is just, I guess, finance, the business side of it. It's, before I used to work in retail. I've been retired for about 3 years now. When I worked in retail, I was a store manager. In retail, you're not going to make a fortune. You're not going to make $1 million in retail. But I had a pretty decent, I made decent money for what I was doing. And I was single. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I didn't go out partying. Basically, all I did was work and go home and write. So, all my extra money, any money that wasn't going to bills or anything, or, buying books, things like that, was going into the publishing. So it did make it easier at that point. Since I've retired, it's gotten a little harder to, finance. That's why I've been doing more of the crowdfunding, since then, because that's the easiest way, or that's the best way, I think, to, get the money for this than, putting everything on credit cards or whatever, because eventually they have to be paid off.
Right. 100%. Yeah. So what has been, I'd say, then, since we're talking about some of the business side of this as well, and I do appreciate how kind of open and honest you are with it, because that's something we try to be as well, as that, if just due to our connections, we oftentimes have students who are going to school for illustration or writing, and they think they're going to write one script or illustrate one portfolio and come straight into Marvel. Yeah, or they're going to put something up on Kickstarter and become the next Alan Moore. But what'd be kind of your piece of advice to someone who's just getting into comics, either trying to seek traditional publishing, trying to become independent. As someone who's done both and has kind of seen the struggles on both sides.
I think if trying to get into it now, you have to be realistic. Like you said, some people come in and they think they're going to be, the next Robert Kirkman and the next Walking Dead or the next, Turtles. But there's not a lot of those that come out. Those are rare.
Yeah.
You've got to, be realistic what you're going to do. You got to figure out, are you going to self-publish? Or are you going to try to, sell your work to a publisher? If you're self-publishing, look at where you're going to get the money from. If you're going on Kickstarter or a crowdfunding site, I know some people have to use it to pay for the artist, and they can't have the work done ahead of time. But if you can get the work done before you do the crowdfunding, like Akimi's done 100%. There's no risks. Otherwise, I've got a Kickstarter out there. I'll be really honest. I have a Kickstarter out there right now that's 2 years late because the artist hasn't finished it. And it's not my project. It was really his project. So I can't fire him and get a new artist.
Right.
I'm waiting for him to finish it, and it's killing me, to be honest, because it's not a good look. I have another Kickstarter that when I went on the Kickstarter, the book was 100% done. So I'm at the point now, unless I'm 100% or at least 90% done, where I know it's going to get.
Okay, just make sure it wasn't just me.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I can't see anyone's movement because all I'm seeing is
Oh yeah,
dead static. So I can't tell if
John
dropped.
froze up for a second. While we wait for him to come back in, Tim, start dancing.
Cool. Well, hopefully John can rejoin us here soon. I'll keep him open, and hopefully someone can let me know when he's back. I'm because I can't see. Technology is great. Yeah.
Is it like watching The Matrix from The Matrix? Like I don't stop seeing numbers anymore. I see blonde, brunette, redhead.
Well, no, it's
Remember that?
yeah, I remember that, but no, it's
That's
like essentially what the visual I'm getting is again to date all of us here. But in like older consoles, remember like Super Nintendo, or like even like GameCube, you get this issue where like you get like the VGA cable like 3/4 of the way in, so it's just enough to like mess up your TV, but you're not actually getting anything besides just flickering whatever. Yeah,
I do indeed remember that.
Yes, good times.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully John can rejoin us soon. We'll keep the channel open there for him. In the
But until then.
yeah, until then. Yeah, so talking about the business side and being realistic with your expectations and all that. I feel like that is honestly the most important advice to give to any young creator in any field. Is,
I will tell you, from going to art school, I went in, not that I was pessimistic, right? But I went in with the expectation, like, I really want to do this, but even if I go through it, there's no guarantee I'm going to get a job, right?
mm-hmm.
I understood that. But I also went into art school older. I think I went into art school when I was 40. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure dead on 40. That was an exact, like, anyway. But my first year, I remember hearing other students, my fellow classmates that were like, oh yeah, like I want to get through this, you know what I mean? And I'm going to start working for Marvel right out. Like I want Marvel to see my stuff and hopefully they'll pick me up. And I'm like, but really? Like, I mean, did you really expect that? Like, because if at that time Marvel and DC are like here, and we're down here below the screen, you know what I mean? Even, and I will say this in my own opinion, okay? I feel Pete was the best person in our class, like the best artist in our class. You know what I mean? And even like my like mentality of like not pessimism, but just like I don't know, realism, I guess. I was like, even I don't think that Pete would get a job right out the gate working for Marvel. And I love Pete's work. I love working with Pete on stuff. I freaking love Pete's stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell him I said that. He's not watching this. British people are on like 5-hour difference, so he's still sleeping.
They don't record this, do they?
You're right. He doesn't watch. He can't. Pete can't understand English.
He speaks British.
Exactly.
He's British. It's different. Like he's too busy figuring out what he's going to have for Sunday roast with the Queen. Well, the Queen now.
I would like for that.
Right?
Totally.
So I went in with the not so high expectations, but I went in with the idea that I'm going to do the best I can. You know what I mean? And this is kind of, I never thought I would ever go to art school, because right out the gate, like, I mean, my family always wanted to push me to go to art school. Like my mom did. And I kind of sabotaged myself to not go. And then I really, like all throughout high school, I had the mentality like, I'm just going to work in a factory. Like, I'll just work in a factory and, do factory stuff. Cause that's literally what all my family does. Factory or auto mechanics. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I hate both.
So you knew yourself.
Yeah, I did. I didn't want to work on. I know how to work on the stuff on a car that I know how to work on, which is not a lot, right. Because my uncle was like, "Nico, I'm going to show you what to do to fix your car." Like, but it's like small stuff. I'm going to show you how to fix your starter. I'm going to show you how to change your alternator. I'm going to show you how to blah 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 blah. Right? Change your disc brakes. By the way, people, it's not easy, but it's not that hard. And I know that most of you don't know what disc brakes are unless you're as old as I am. I'm just
tire percent has been dating it.
Not disc brakes. I'm sorry, drum brakes.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Well, I mean, the key in your story is that you basically knew what you wanted, but you also knew that it was going to require a lot from you.
Yeah.
I feel like there are some people who are interested in getting into comics who feel like what they need, the way to succeed in comics is to get discovered, which is a terrible way to look at it, because then it's really like you're basically playing the lottery, hoping that you will sustain yourself on what you win, which, I mean, nothing is really that way. That if you really want to be good at something, you will work at it until you're good at it. And when you're good at it, that's when people start noticing you.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And yeah, it's a sad truth. I mean, the filmmaking business is the same way. There are so many people who feel like if they just knock it out of the park the first time, then people just, they'll start getting calls from agents and stuff like that. But agents aren't really interested in you until you've already done something. So it's this weird thought that you have to work in order to get work.
You can't get into the business unless people have seen your body of work, but you can't have a body of work if you don't do something in the business.
Right.
Yeah. So, but there are ways to do it. It's just they're not going to pay much, and you are going to have to work the day job.
Mm-hmm. Listen, there are a lot of artists that, like, when I was looking it up in like the 90s and early 2000s, where they have day jobs. You know what I mean? They worked a day. Ron Fortier. He's a our Ron. You know what I mean? A writer, but he worked for the electric company for how many years? Which was his day job. You know what I mean? Until he could, facilitate doing just writing. It was really just until his wife pushed him to get out there and do it. But I think that's what wives do anyway, because mine does the same thing to me.
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
And the funny thing too is we're talking about comics. Comics is not film. I remember I've told you guys this story before. When I started writing Kalis, one of my colleagues at work was like, Brent wants to become a famous comic book writer and leave the job. And I'm like, I don't actually think those exist. A famous comic book writer. there are comic book writers who work hard and maybe get some notoriety in the business itself and maybe get a fan base, but fame is, if you want to get into comics to get famous, don't get into comics. Get into something else. Like try out for American Idol or something like that. Your odds are bad, but okay. But if you really like comics and you just really want to do them on your own, I mean, that's a great reason to get into it. Don't do it because you get famous. Do it because you love it. So,
welcome back, John.
Sorry about that. My internet went down.
I figured something like that.
Thinking Skynet.
Yes, indeed.
You're the second one down. Who will be next?
Well, I just kind of caught the end of what you were saying. You could be famous in a little pond, a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
but that's about right. But there is really unless you're Stan Lee is probably the most famous, but that was because of the movies more than anything.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are professional comic book artists, you know what I mean, that I absolutely will fanboy out for, even, and I still say I'm fairly new to the business, you know what I mean? But of course I'm gonna fanboy. I was like, oh my God, good gravy, right? But famous, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
We're gonna.
I mean,
the people I think are gonna be great are not the same people that everyone else is gonna get. Oh, who's that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jim Lee is famous, but he's famous to us.
Right.
George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and Jim Lee. People will be like, I know the first two, and that's fine.
Yeah. Outside of a comic book convention, Jim Lee could walk down the street and nobody's going to know who he is. Brad Pitt walks down the street, people are going to know who he is.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a reason why on Artist Row they have the placard with their name on it, because they're not recognized. I mean, they are, just like everyone, John Q. Public. It's when they drop. It's when you're like, whoa, okay. I love this stuff. Wow.
Yes. That's also the thing, too, is something we've talked about on previous iterations of the show is having your own idea of what you're like. At what point do you consider yourself successful, and like understanding what it is, and like you can still be influential and like have done these things like like Jose was saying, if you're on comics, Twitter, Blue Sky, Tumblr, what have you, you'll have famous creators that'll have thousands to millions of followers, but it's everyone else in that list is probably also in some way working on comics or related, or is just a very diehard fan. And so we're at this weird point where you can be big and small at the same time, where it's understanding your own microcosms and macrocosms. Somewhere this is going to be a stretched segue, so I apologize. But similarly, someone who existed in a microcosm that not many people know his name, but most people are familiar with stuff influenced by his work. One such Hunter S. Thompson. John, you created a character called Joe Buskin that pulls some inspiration from that is someone that I want to kind of get into this character and what the decisions in creating this character were like. My whole screen went blank for a minute, so I don't even know if you're asking me a question. I don't know what the question was. All right, great. The internet's dying. We reached the end, everyone. The internet is over. So I was saying that I was making a very stretched segue, and talking about someone that's existing in a similar macrocosm, where not a lot of people are familiar with the name, but are familiar with the work in a way that many comic creators find their success. Hunter S. Thompson, you created a character named Joe Buskin that is full of inspiration from him, and I kind of want to get into the decisions that went into Joe Buskin.
That was at the time. the Lizards comics stories that I had mentioned that were in Critters was illustrated by Ron Wilbur. And back in those days, this was before the internet, so there was no Facebook or anything to go on to look for artists. But I don't know if anyone's familiar. There was a newspaper that was called Comic Spires Guide, and it was basically just a newspaper, with ads, and they had like a classified section in the back. Well, I would take out ads in the back looking for artists, and Ron Wilbur was one of the artists that had mailed me through the mail, and we started working together. We did Lizards, and he'd sent me a whole bunch of other, sketches of his and things like that. Well, one of the sketches he sent me was of this pig in the Hawaiian shirt and the shorts and the flip-flops and the little beard on his chin, and that some reason that picture just spoke to me. I kept looking at that picture going, that's a character. There's a story behind that character. And I'm a big Hunter S. Thompson fan. I love Hunter S. Thompson. And it's kind of sad at conventions now when I try, that's kind of my sales pitch when people ask about it, is like, what if Hunter S. Thompson retired and moved to Florida? And a lot of people don't even know who Hunter S. Thompson is. But so I just kept looking at that, and it kind of, I looked at that character and said, well, he looks like, the typical ugly American, the guy that moves to Florida and thinks, yells at people, like nowadays you'd call him like the Karen,
Mm-hmm.
and from there I just, kind of, well, where did he come from? What did he do? And I just started thinking, what if he was like, that liberal writer, the guy that wrote for Rolling Stone, and now he's completely opposite it. And his best friend that moved to Florida with him is Harvey, Louisiana. Now, Harvey is the guy that still holds on those ideals and those, he's still like the big 60s guy that thinks, peace and love and all of that. But, Joe is just, he's over that. He's just looking out for himself now. And the funny thing was the name. Well, I seen the name somewhere, but Joe Bushkin is the name of a jazz pianist player that I didn't know who that was. I just seen the name somewhere, and I thought that name just was kind of, some reason that name fit that character. And it was only after I named him and we were working that I realized he actually was a fairly well-known, back in, I think, the 50s, he was a fairly well-known jazz player.
Perfect. Yeah. I'd say, like, when doing like initial research, the Googling gets very confused at a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is.
Yeah, but that was one of those stories we were hoping it was going to, do more than one issue, but it was one of those stories that never. It was more humorous, I think, than serious. Even though some of the ideas I came out with it were a little more serious, but we played it for the humor, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd say that's. I deal my fair bit of absurdism, so that was this an immediate eye-grabbing character, and that like, yes, this is someone that is going to be. It's a niche audience, but if you're in that audience, you really get it.
Well, almost everything I write, I shouldn't say everything, but most of what I write, I like to put some little absurd thing, even if it's a very serious thing. Right. I like to throw a little absurdity. One of my biggest influences as a comic book writer is Steve Gerber, the creator of Howard the Duck. I mean, and his writing, to me, he wrote the best run of the Defenders, and his Defenders he had such absurd characters and plot lines in it that everything I write has to have a little of that humor or absurdity to it. I just, if everything is too serious, I have to throw something else into it.
100%. And that also just speaks to one, adding kind of your own distinct touch on to your work as a creative, but also being in your own space or in your, owning your own label where you can do that, where you're not necessarily being held by an editorial team to hold a certain tone the entire time. But also I like the way of thinking of, I have the same thought where I almost criticize myself when my creative work, like the voice from Monty Python is like, oh no, this is far too serious. We must do something unrelated now. No, I appreciate it quite a bit.
All right. Tim,
so-
I have to share this.
Okay.
It's so awesome.
Well,
Nice.
I'll be able to see this when I go back and watch the VOD because my
Right? It is Joe Bushkin standing with his little Hawaiian shirt, holding a drink in front of a trailer.
forever.
You're gonna love it when you see it. All right.
Amazing. Okay.
Well-
Well, something else talked about, and I saw in my initial research, something that I can get behind is it looks like you also now have a Tumblr community or Tumblr group created for independent comic creators.
I just created that like yesterday.
Perfect.
Well, yeah, I've been going like on Facebook and all the social media. You know, I've been posting about Akimi. You know, like
Yeah.
Blue Sky, Twitter, and I really forget I have a Tumblr account. You know, and Tumblr is just I always forget about it, and I remembered it, so I was like, well, let me go on Tumblr and let me post about Akimi, and I started posting, and I seen some of these other communities, and I thought, well, let me just throw this up there, and you know, because I have a Substack too that I write a lot about, like the behind the scenes of, you know, how I came up with a character, how I did this book. I've actually got a few little digest books where, you know, I got one that's creating comics, just about active creation. I wrote one about script writing. You know, I took one of my characters, Alma, and basically I just wrote the script, put the script in there and some notes and stuff like that, because a lot of conventions, a lot of people that want to write, you know, one of the first, I think the two biggest questions they ask you are, where do you get your idea and how do you write a script? You know, so both of these, the creating comics is all about the creation. You know, I talk about how I came up with ideas and where these things came from. And then the other one, the Alma, the script is just, because I write everything longhand. I don't sit at the computer and create, you know, everything is longhand. So I took my original script that I wrote in longhand, where I have all the scratches, and, you know, I'll add something in and draw lines where it goes to, and just, you know, they only make sense to me. I took that, made a copy of, and then on the side of it, I put the actual finished typewritten script, so you can kind of compare the differences. Because as I move along, as I go, that's also one of my editing stages. You know, when I take the handwritten script and then type it up, I'll polish it up, make moves things, change things as I go along. So, you know, and so I just came up with the idea for that, you know, that Tumblr, you know. So far, you know, like I said, I only started yesterday, so, you know, I put a couple posts up there, and I'm just kind of waiting for other people that want to post about it too. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think small social media communities are, in terms of, you know, marketing yourself if you're an independent creator, are invaluable, but also not just for marketing your books, also marketing your skills if you're trying to get on jobs. Something that when I did work with Mad Cave, got pushed around the editorial a lot, was the idea of every hashtag is a portfolio. And so making use of your social media to either like put out story ideas or put out illustration work and try to connect other people in that same space you are, because, you know, when you are starting out, you're not going to have editors pounding on your door trying to get to work with you. You're going to have to dig through the trenches to find someone who you vibe with and wants to work for the same team that you do.
Yeah. I'll admit I am terrible about adding hashtags to my posts. I usually forget almost all the time. And then every now and then I've been trying to do it more with Akimi, but even that I've been bad about.
Definitely. I understand that, but yeah, I just want to kind of talk about that because I think that's I think it's cool to also see creators that are actively creating community as well in some way, even if it is just starting a small Tumblr community.
Well, I know when I started, I would have killed to have somebody show me how to write a script, or see an example of a script, or there's so much that I didn't know about, and I don't know all the answers, and my script isn't a perfect way to write a script because there is no perfect way to write a script. It's whatever works best for you. But I figure at least this may help some people. Some people can see that. I know when I started out, I would have killed to have some of these, somebody just, dropping some of the ideas and thoughts about this type of stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that's also part of, what inspired this show is just, now there's a lot more resources available thanks to the internet and programs and the fact that comics have been normalized to an extent, and you can take a writing course in your community college, but having this weekly space where you can talk about what's it actually like in the industry and what's the weird stuff you have to deal with. Hopefully that is of benefit to whoever chooses to watch us when they're woken up by the Roku TV at 3 a.m. Absolutely. So yeah, we're coming up on our last couple minutes here as we approach our hour mark. John, is there anything that you wanted to get to tonight that we've not had a chance to, or anything that you want to talk about?
Mainly just, I appreciate the fact that I can talk about Akimi. I'm hoping to get some people that will go there and back it. Future after Akimi, I'm actually going to do a Zoop for the digital library of Dodgeball Comics, where basically there's going to be no print versions of it. It's all going. Yeah, I've got like almost 30 comics I've published under Diebold. So I'm gonna have all of those on the Zoop, and you'll be able to buy them all digitally. So one, they'll all be cheaper than a print version, and two, when it ends, you'll get your book within a day or two. I don't depending on how many people contribute to it, I may not get everything out the same day, but it'll still be within the first couple of days. I don't have to mail anything. I don't have to ship anything. And I'm not anticipating the Zoop to be I don't think I'm going to make thousands off of it because, like I said, the books will be cheaper, but there's going to be no real cost for me either. I don't have to pay printing costs or shipping costs. So even if I only make a few $100s off of it, that's a few $100s, and plus I've got the books out to maybe some extra people that had never seen them before.
Absolutely, that is sick. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. I also see that if someone really wanted to, they could see the first couple pages of Akimi on Global Comics as well.
Yeah, I just added that. I had somebody, I didn't realize you could that they actually put like a banner on there if you have a crowdfunder too. And someone pointed it out to me, so I went on because I've got a page on Global Comics. I've been selling some of my back even before DC and Marvel and all those hooked up with Global. Back when it was mainly all just indie guys. I've had a page on there. I'm not making big money, but I get emails from them like every week or two. It says you made money on Global Comics, and when you click on it, it's like you made 5 cents.
Great, good.
Gentlemen, 5 cents.
Yeah.
That's still awesome though. Yeah. So if anyone wants to get a little bit of a preview before necessarily getting their pre-order placed through Fund My Comic, you can head over to Global Comics as well, and
I put the first 6 pages over there where you can get an idea of what a preview for it.
All right.
Okay.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, where can people find you on the internet and all such other things?
Well, it's Substack is where I pretty much do all my, writing. I comic book writing. I show what comics are coming up. I write about, how to write scripts. I also just write everything on there. I just did I think it was a dozen posts recently about Katrina. The hurt. I live right outside of New Orleans, and I lived through Katrina. And when Katrina went through, I was actually blogging. I had a blog at the time. That's how old I am. And I didn't even, I forgot about it until, we just came up on the 20th anniversary of Katrina last summer. And it made me go back and look at it. So I kind of just started putting all those up there. So basically that Substack is a site for everything. But you can also find me on every Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, LinkedIn. And I actually even started a TikTok, which for me is I'm not a video guy. I'm not but I'm trying to be on every social media site. So you can either find me on all the social. I'm either under my name or under Diebold Comics.
There you go.
Well, I try to be everywhere.
I mean, you almost have to nowadays, and I think Jose and myself and all of us here can learn from that a little bit.
Well, it's kind of like which ones do you pick? And I don't know, which one's better than another one. So I figured, let me just be on all of them. So when I make these posts, I just sit there and I'll just, copy and paste, to every site and just move on.
Pretty smart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the same idea, right? Of when you're just getting into writing or just getting into illustrating, it's try a little bit of every genre and then narrow down from there, take the lessons you learn and find out what your tone is. Yeah. Same thing with social media is just go everywhere and then find out what resonates.
Yeah. But I'm bad about that. I have never picked a genre to write in. I've, I write, I just, whatever I feel like, or, captures my interest, I'll write the Akimi. I wrote 2 Tons of Fury, which is, completely slapstick, public domain characters. I write horror, it's just, to me, it's just easier to write I probably should narrow it down. I think about that a lot, that I should have picked 1 or 2 characters years ago. And by now I could have had 50 issues of it out, but I know every time I get a new idea, I want to, that's the problem. I want to start something right away. And I've got all these ideas and it's let me do this, let me do that. But, there's only so much, only so much money I have to pay artists to do all these things.
Understandable. I guess that's the different approaches. You find your character and you stick with them for forever, or you do the Terry Pratchett approach where I want to write every story possible. I'm just going to make one weird world where they can kind of all coexist.
Everything,
My editor won't get mad at me. Okay.
I swear they're all supposed to be in the same universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone can cross paths.
Yeah.
How many people are on the planet? About 20.
Well, I got. Was that the joke you wrote about that in Going Postal, saying, I knew the gods were angry with us, and this is an old joke because they made the world a disc. Kind of poking fun at his own idea.
Why am I not a writer?
Okay. Well, next week, again, we want to thank you, John, for joining us and sharing this conversation with us. And again,
for having me.
Yeah, encourage everyone to go and fund Akimi. The links again are in the chat, so go ahead and do so. They'll be related in the comments as well after this turns into a VOD. And if you're watching on Roku, the link is flashed in front of you a couple times now. And
Subliminally,
messaging. Yeah. I think that's what's happened with these screens that StreamYard is doing to me. It's just encoding messages in the static.
Skynet, I'm telling you, you shouldn't have been looking at the dark web.
That's your answer to everything.
I know. I'm thoroughly convinced Skynet's going to take over. No one believes me.
Well, the second that ChatGPT gets a little too anxious, Jose is going to be out front with the sawed-off shotgun and the motorcycle.
All are going to hit me up and say, "Sir, that my size of my foil hat is this number.
All right.
There's a reason why I'm raising my own chickens and turkeys and whatnot.
Perfect. Well, hopefully we won't need to rely on survivalism. Next week, we are going to be talking about crowdfunding comics, running a successful Kickstarter. Something that Silverline and the Reform Malibu have quite a bit of experience with, and we hope we can help John reach that point as well with Akimi. So again, make sure to hit that
Akimi
back button.
Akimi on Fund My Comic, guys. Come on.
Thank y'all.
Yes. All right. Well, again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, people watching live and who are watching later on streaming services around the world. And John, we do the same at the end of every show. Feel free to join in if you wish. If not, that's okay.
Look at us weird. It's okay.
Yeah. We, of course, wish everyone a good night. And then we say until next time, make mine Silverline. So if you don't mind joining us, we wish everyone a good night. And until next time,
make mine
Silverline.
Hey, this is Paul Pelletier. Make mine Silverline. Is that okay, Roland?